Good morning and welcome. My colleague and I are from BuroHappold Engineering, and we're delighted to be invited here to speak to you today and to highlight some of our projects which demonstrate the BIM journey that our company has been on. At BuroHappold, we make the vision viable. That means that we make our client's vision a reality. Today, we hope to demonstrate that to you by highlighting these three projects: the Louvre in Abu Dhabi, City of Dreams in Macau, and the Museum of the Future in Dubai. My name is Craig Garrett. I'm the Project Technology Leader for BuroHappold in Dubai. Originally from Glasgow in Scotland, I've more recently spent the last 8 years in the Middle East. Working on these complex and iconic projects. Try this. Thank you. My role in these projects has been information manager, and I have provided strategic information management consultancy services to key clients on major projects. That's everything from employers' information requirements, to BIM execution plans, to construction collaboration. But we have been recently very generously awarded some key industry awards as an appreciation for our experience and our excellence in BIM implementation. I'm now going to pass you over to my colleague, Alain.
Right. Can you hear me? Right. Technology. Good. Perfect. I don't need this. Here. Good morning. So you have a two-people show. So I'm responsible for pushing technology across BuroHappold. Across. That's not working. Something else. Okay. We'll do it with this way. BuroHappold, we're worldwide, which is quite a privilege. So we can share with you the experience of BIM from the West Coast of America, where you have the LA project we delivered in 2013. We have the experience, as Craig mentioned, at the other end in Hong Kong, Macau. We have experiences here in Russia. We have experience in France, in Luxembourg, in the UK. If I move here, you can see the Atlanta Falcons. The main point is we have been on a journey. Arctic was in Los Angeles, was delivered in 2013. And these projects have allowed us to learn, thanks to our clients. And we feel it's our duty to share with everybody what we've learned, because today we can report that we are 100% BIM, in the same way as there is a computer on every desk. We have BIM models on every desk. We do not work in any other medium than BIM. So the reason we're there is because of our friend Tina. Tina stands for There Is No Alternative. We were handed projects where there is no alternative but to use the best in technology. Now we use it on every project, and we invite everybody to do the same, because the outcomes are quite spectacular, and it's actually a lot more fun, and people come and work in our industry because, as you just saw a minute ago, we are not yet digitized, but now we are. Now we're becoming digitized. So we participate in reports, and I think it's useful to think in terms of BIM users. This report is about the business impact of BIM in the Middle East in this case, and on the front page you can see our projects, and it refers to different companies starting to use BIM for different purpose. And what we'd like to share is how, as a design firm, we contribute and participate. But of course, it's teamwork. So, Abu Dhabi Louvre. It opened last month, and we'd like to share a few experiences from this project. But what we have to remember is this is 2008. Who remembers their iPhone in 2008? I do. It was a 3GS. It barely worked. The battery lasted a couple of hours. So remember, what we show here, 2008, is a technology that we had then. And I will invite my colleague in a minute back to tell and share what we're doing today. Of course, this is an amazing project. So that's why we get invited. So I must thank the French architect, Jean Nouvel. This normally has music, but this is not a virtual representation. This is the movie I took a couple of months back when I visited. It's just an amazing project. The dome seems to float, and that is why I think we are in this industry. We are in this industry to be able to create amazing spaces for people. And if we don't adopt digital technologies, then I think we are under-delivering. So how do you get one of these things built? And I'd like to focus on a couple of uses. 2008, remember, 2008, iPhone 3. So, for us, the challenge was managing the information, mostly relating to the dome, but also what came under the dome. Because, of course, the dome is iconic. The dome is Jean Nouvel's idea. It's a fantastic architectural intent. What is fantastic for BIM, of course, is that a computer loves the pattern. The computer can easily handle the information. The drafting table cannot easily represent a dome. It cannot represent all the elements. There are more than 7,000 elements in the dome. But to a computer, 700, 7,000 doesn't matter. So it's fantastic. But below the dome, we are going to put our world's exhibits. Now, we are very near a fantastic museum, the Hermitage, where you have the privilege of fantastic art. There are very few places like that in the world. Another one is the Louvre in Paris. And in 2007, they decided that the art would be shared with Abu Dhabi, and it would be put into an iconic building that we built inside the sea. So we're going to put some of the most precious and most valuable art in the world underwater in a desert. So obviously we needed to protect it, and that created completely new challenges in creating a building. And we deployed technology. One of the very interesting part of the vision of Jean Nouvel is that the pattern was going to create a ray of light inside and create a new ecosystem, a new sustainable, much cooler space underneath the dome. And we used a lot of computer simulation to predict what the light would be, etc. However, that's not new. I mean, we've been doing computer simulation for many, many years. What was new was that the design delivery in BIM, the information that was going to be transmitted to the construction site, was linked to the analysis. It's that link, it's that single source of truth that is the Holy Grail and is now fully operational. And you can see that you develop these interoperability charts on how you link BIM and analysis. This is 2008. Today, this is standard. And again, Craig will share with you some more examples. And the result, that is a render. That was the target design. And from the video a minute ago, you can see that we got there. Then we had to build it. And there are many challenges in building such an unsupported 700-meter dome. It is huge. It deforms while you're building it. One BIM use that we can think about is how do you manage the logistics? Construction is a logistics problem. Across the world, we operate on small sites, complex sites. We want to reduce the amount of space used inside our cities. Here is a great example. 7,850 steel element fabricated in Austria, needing to be delivered to the site in the right order at the right time. Well, would you not get a computer to do that? Would you not reuse the model that already has every single one of those to track it? And of course, that's what we did. Now, in the old days, you use spreadsheet. The technology that runs our industry is Excel. Today, when we give a problem to somebody, they use Excel. Amazing. Try to run a car company on Excel, you will fail. Or you will build ladders. Try to create a phone company on Excel, you will fail. You will build Nokias. Why do we insist on using Excel? Use BIM. It's a database. It's ready. I'm clicking. Both? Can we have the next slide? Which have an ERP system, just started using the data. Every single part has a little QR code. Everybody has an iPhone, reads the QR code, and we bring every single element from Austria to the site in the right order. If you had to do it, that's what you would do. Like, we're now in Hong Kong, so we are a little bit too far. Let's see if we can go back here. Right. Yeah. So you can see that what we can do is link those technologies. In the same way as over the internet, everything gets linked up, right? If you go to a shopping site, suddenly you swipe your card and they can get the money and then give the money to the shopping site. It's exactly the same thing. We are starting to connect BIM to the rest of the world. And that is a fantastic use case. Now, we did it on the Louvre because there is no alternative, because there is no need to prove the business case. Because either you do it that way or you don't have a building. And we are very fortunate to be in these kind of projects. But I would argue that any supply chain, do you know, for example, that 20% of all materials that comes to site never gets inside the building? 20%. If a car factory brought 20% too many parts to the factory, you'd have to pay 20% more for your cars. Or somebody would figure out how to do this, and then they would beat all the other car makers. And that's exactly what happened, right? Toyota figured how to do this, and they managed to beat all the other car makers. So this is today, it's radically easy to do. It was hard 10 years ago, Now we're in the iPhone 10 generation, it's easy to do. So in a few hours, you know exactly where you are. You have full visibility of the supply chain. You don't have too many parts. You don't have to have a lot of space at the site. You don't have to use a lot of cash to pay your suppliers because it arrived in time. Magic. Second project. Again, there is no alternative. I'll ask a simple question before I move on, because there are many designers and many construction firms. Have you posed to think that every hole in a wall is round because we use a drill to make it? If you didn't use a drill to make the hole, it wouldn't be round. You'd choose what size you want, what shape you want. So the question is, what would you build? What would you design if you could design anything? And let's have a look at what's happening when you link BIM to fabrication. Because now, we are looking at a building that exists like this. Inside, it's pretty traditional, but outside, there is a complex shape, which is an exoskeleton that is supporting it. No drawings can represent it. It bends and it weaves. It's represented only in a computer. Can you bring this information and start doing connection design? Yes, you can. Today, we can link all BIM models, all design models, to fabrication models, and then to the actual mill that is making those parts. Transmit digitally what would not be possible to transmit in a drawing. Now, of course, the lawyers won't like it because they like a piece of paper. Of course, it's more difficult because if the drawing is stamped, issued for construction, and then contractors bid against that, we know how to do that. But that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is say, this is what I want built, press a button, and it goes to the mill, and the mill manufactures. And that's what we get. I mean, these aren't small bits. This is huge bits. And this is not in an advanced country. This is done in Shenzhen. These bits, the design was conceived by Zaha in London. The structure was conceived in London and in Bath by BuroHappold. The connection were individually designed in Hong Kong and transmitted to mills in China. Factories in China today can accept your BIM transmitted design to full resolution, right? Some people call this L5, some call this LOD 400. I just call it the design that has to be cut in steel, transmitted in China. This is becoming reality. We've just delivered another building in North America called Mercedes-Benz Atlanta Falcon Stadium. There was no drawing. Every single piece of steel was cut by the machine out of the BIM model. Why would you not do that? So that has been our journey. And now we get to 2016, and I'll hand back to Craig, who will share what the iPhone 10 looks like.
Thank you. Our third project that we want to have a look at today is the Museum of the Future in Dubai by Killer Design Architects. Video should play. The BIM uses that we now see that we are able to use on this project are extensive. Not only the ones that we are already aware of that we've been able to use now for a number of years, 3D visualization, 3D modeling, we're all very familiar with those. We are now starting to push the boundaries and add considerably more BIM uses to these projects. We were very fortunate on this project to have an exceptionally intelligent client who knew exactly what they wanted from the beginning. This led them to clearly identify the information requirements at the start of the project. We were very fortunate that they engaged with us collaboratively and that we could produce this documentation together. And this let us produce a BIM execution plan that not only worked for everyone at the design stage, but there was a key document that we took with us when we started to deal with the contractor and collaboratively developed for them to produce a document that we're using every day on the construction site now. With such a wide diverse of disciplines on this project, we also have a wide variation in geographies. And only again the technology available today in the form of a common data environment is necessary in order to allow all these stakeholders to communicate project information as they need it, when they need it, in the cloud. This again is one of the important tasks of the information manager on any project, is the successful operation of this common data environment. The client had ambitions beyond the normal. There were certain things that had to be done. Our quantity surveyor had to have the ability to take the models and automatically produce quantity takeoffs. We had early contractor engagement where we actually were involved in the process of selecting the contractor to ensure that they had the necessary BIM skills and experience that we were going to require in order to deliver the project. But that's not only for the contractor themselves, but also for the supply chain for that contractor. Massive amount of laser scanning used on this project, primarily to scan the structural diagram to ensure that it's actually been built in the correct location, and then compare those scans to the digital model that's actually being produced to make sure that our construction is within acceptable tolerances. This also allows for laser laying out of our mechanical services and a tremendous improvement in the confidence we have that those services will be installed in exactly the right position because that information has been fed from the model. Construction sequencing, very important again, and especially in relation to temporary work scheduling, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then ultimately, of course, our data handover to the client and the facilities management for the operation of the building, a stage that we're actually currently involved in right now. This is a view taken from the model that's live from our BIM 360 platform in the cloud. At the design stage, this model contained 9 federated sub-models. We're now in construction. Weekly, we have 37 construction models uploading live into the federated model every week. Not only is this available for the whole design team and construction team, it's available for the client to view as well. Optimization of the diagrid obviously was exceptionally important, and this was really only possibly achieved by using visual scripting and tools such as Dynamo and Grasshopper. BuroHappold have developed bespoke solutions in order for us to develop this kind of technology. But being able to optimize one factor is great, but being able to optimize multiple factors all on top of one another are where the maximum benefit's achieved. You'll see here 40% less nodes is obviously less construction cost. 30% less weight, less material costs, and an overall 80% less variation in that structure makes for easier constructing. We're all used to 3D model visualization, and there's even some examples of that here today. In this model that you see, the structure has been turned transparent to allow you to see the services underneath. But what this demonstrates also is the development of an LOD model from the design stage to that same model in the construction stage, and the noticeable difference that you see in relation to that level of detail that's added to the model by the contractor. Unfortunately, of course, what happens when clients have this level of information available to them is they then see opportunities for change. This is a construction sequence that's running at the moment. Very shortly it will get to April in the bottom bar, where you'll see where we are currently in our construction program. And then as it goes to the end of the page, you will see where we will be at the end of this year. One of the key things that happened when we developed this model was we started to put temporary structures in yellow in the scheduling. And we discovered that actually some temporary structures were still going to be there when the services were due to be installed. This was the first time that we'd realized this problem. We would never have seen this had we not had such detailed construction sequencing. This is the project today. On the left, as it stands right now on site, and on the right, the construction sequence taken from exactly the same day. Every element in the model is color-coded to tell us its progress. And in this model, you see that we have green, which says as built, it's actually in place and constructed, and blue, which means it's been delivered to site. And that means that we know that those pieces are there to be constructed next. Logistics are so tight on the site, we need to monitor this. So in summarizing to finish, I'd just like to show you our BIM journey, or digital transformation journey. And I'm quite sure actually some of you in the audience today may well look at this and recognize this. 2005 to 2008, that real boost in the industry where we thought BIM would be the answer to all our problems, to unfortunately be followed by a real drop-off in the industry when we realized that it was just too difficult to do at that stage. But really since 2010 we've been on quite a different journey, and I think we can all appreciate the industry is slowly but surely climbing and maturing. These are the three projects we talked about and the timeline of when they were originally designed. But more importantly, what I want to highlight to you is the increase in BIM use that's coming with these projects year after year, to the point now that our latest project, the Museum of the Future, has far more BIM uses than we would ever have had on projects before. In BuroHappold Engineering, we make the vision viable for our clients. Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое. Two questions.
Yeah.
У нас есть время на два вопроса. Если
We have time for two questions, so if you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. We have people with the roving mics, so if you want to ask a question, please wait for the mic. And meanwhile, I'll ask one question from the internet, from our online feed. Which software?
вот software used.
Which software was used for joints?
The reality is, of course, we use many softwares. Our number one authoring software for our company is Autodesk Revit. But when you see some of these challenging buildings and these complex shapes, Revit has its limitations also. And it is necessary to go to other softwares which are better suited to this kind of form of geometry. So it's not really whether you're going into a structural design package or whether you're going to maybe a surface modeling package or what you're doing. It's the ability to be able to interoperate between almost any software. Regularly now on our projects, a lot of this geometry is done in Rhino, it's done in CATIA. And we shouldn't be afraid of that. We should accept that that's the case because there are tools that are better suited for certain tasks. What we have to ensure is that we can interoperate. For example, the BIM 360 glue model accepts models in various formats from all different softwares, and it's all federated together in BIM 360 glue.
Thank you. Будет ли вопрос из зала?
Any questions from the audience? Thank you.
You act as a designer. The question is, how do you deliver design information to construction site? Do you support constructor somehow?
So I didn't quite catch the last part.
Do you support constructor on the construction site somehow? Maybe you provide them
Yes.
some support.
So really, again, really good question. So BuroHappold Engineering are a consultancy, and we operate in very different ways. In some cases, we work for a client. In some cases, we work for an architect. And in some cases, like Museum of the Future, we are actually the lead consultant. So this means that not only were we involved in the design stage of the project, and that's all services, MEP, structures, infrastructure, you name it, but that we are also responsible still to this day on site as construction supervisors and client advisors. And that means that we are still there every single day making sure that the design as it was intended is being constructed by the contractor. My job has been really made very, very easy by having some really exceptional contractors on our project who are exceptionally BIM capable. Now, I appreciate that sometimes the supply chain is the problem. They don't necessarily have the BIM experience. But if you can get really good, experienced subcontractors who are able to engage in the BIM model environment, the results are plain to see. It's fabulous.
Okay, thank you. And who is responsible for such supply chain of?
Yeah. So always the main contractor will be responsible for that supply chain. So even if they are subcontractors to them, they will be responsible. A good example of that, for example, is that it's very difficult to get your whole supply chain, obviously, all to be working in BIM. It's just not capable in the industry, I don't believe, at the moment. But it's the responsibility has been placed clearly through the BIM execution plan on the main contractor. So in the event that a subcontractor doesn't have the BIM capability themselves, it's the main contractor's responsibility to interpret that information into BIM for the rest of the design team.
Thank you.
Спасибо большое. Давайте похлопаем.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to this fantastic presentation.